Here's a myth hiding in plain sight inside one of the biggest financial decisions most people will ever make. Expertise equals objectivity. It's a beautiful assumption, but it's a very expensive mistake, actually, because in real estate, the people with the most expertise often have the most to gain from you moving forward. Agents, lenders, platforms, everybody has information, almost everybody has an incentive, and that creates a brutal question for the consumer. Who do I trust when everyone around the decision profits if I transact? And that's not a small design flaw, that's actually the whole game. So today we're talking about what happens when guidance gets decoupled from revenue and why this fact feels radical says more about the system than the solution. Welcome back to Is Anything Real, the reality first leadership show where we test advice, publish the receipts, and ship what actually works under pressure. I'm Adam W. Barney, transition leadership coach, author of Make Your Own Glass Half Full, and builder of Energy OS, where I help leaders rebuild their operating system when the tools that got them here stop working. Today's guest is Nico Lang, co-founder of Aligre. Aligre's mission is beautifully simple and wildly disruptive. Objective guidance for people trying to decide if and when to buy or sell a home, not execute the transaction, not replace agents, not become another hand in the commission pile. Aligre exists earlier in the decision when consumers are asking, should we do this? Is now the right time? What are the trade-offs? And this one is a big one because Nico isn't just tinkering around the edges. He sold his own house to fund this company. So this isn't founder theater, it's receipt level conviction. Nico, welcome to the show.
And thank you so much for having me. We're really excited to be here.
I'm psyched to have you here. Nico, let's start here. What problem did you see in real estate that made you say this should not exist this way?
Yeah, no, that's the question. So when I became an agent, I noticed right off the bat that the number one question I got was, is it a good time to buy or sell a house? I understood almost immediately that I was the last person on the planet to that question. There was two reasons for that. By the way, that I had to kind of take a humble pill to realize that. But the reason that I wasn't, and I don't believe that agents are either, the person to answer that question with any true validity, veracity, is because number one, as you mentioned,
Yep.
when I participate and I benefit from whatever you do with the information that I've given you as guidance, we have an inherent conflict of interest. That's the number one thing.
Right.
And then the second thing was that I just do not have enough depth of knowledge about you as an individual and your financial situation, your
Yep.
upcoming life milestones. There are so many variables that you could have two neighbors that bought their house at the exact same time, exact same floor plan, and it can be a great time for Bob to sell and a terrible time for Ashley. And we I realized that real estate is as personal as taxes,
Mm-hmm.
but the guidance that people receive is so generic.
Yep.
It's often distilled down to one variable, which is how's the market. And there's
Yep.
just so much more beyond that. So that's when I started thinking, okay, there's something here, and I need to figure it out and hopefully solve it.
Well, and I think that's part of the process that people forget, right? Buying or selling a home isn't just a transaction. It affects everything from identity to family to lifestyle, school districts, and that deeply American sport of pretending Zillow scrolling is financial planning. And I think usually the first big question isn't which house, it's should we move at all? But what do you see consumers usually misunderstand at that earliest decision point?
That's exactly right. And it's what you just said. And I'm guilty of it too. It's much more fun to dream, and it's much easier to scroll, than it is to actually ask yourself those tough questions. And that's even in real estate today, take my company out of it. You do see people, they start looking at houses before they talk to a lender because that's the fun thing. Um, what we wanted to do is give people the ability to as they're scrolling, see real numbers in real time, that they actually aren't just looking at a cute little farmhouse. They can see, oh yeah, that's what this farmhouse will cost me and my family on a monthly payment level. Um, Based on how long my family is planning on being in our next home, this is what that return on investment would be if we bought that cute little farmhouse. So
Yep.
we want to start slowly adding educational pieces that are built around you and our users as you're doing the fun scrolling, because we will have all the search features and all that fun stuff. But yeah, you nailed it. In some ways, these platforms like Zillow and Redfin, they are storefronts. They have a really pretty product in the window with nice shiny lights shining down on it.
Yeah.
And you're not and the price tag, literally and figuratively, is, I mean, it's, yeah, they show the listing, but what they don't show you is that long-term impact. And Adam,
Mm,
you nailed it. This is a financial decision, but it's a decision that, when it doesn't go right, you're impacting childhoods. You could impact marriages. You can impact educations. You can impact retirement. There are so many pieces of your life that are built around this asset, that getting the decision wrong is so significant. And we exist to help you get it just a little bit better, a little more right than you have.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean that is such a big thing, right? Consumers need guidance before they need execution. And to kind of play something that's a little bit spicy here, and I think you would agree, agents and lenders have the expertise, but they don't always, or maybe even often, have objectivity because they have that vested interest in the outcome. And I'm not attacking agents. There are
Yeah,
good agents out there. I have some that are my friends. There are some good lenders out there as well, but those incentives are real. How do you talk about that tension without making it turn into agents versus buyers or consumers?
100%. And the thing is that agents, lenders, they are out there, they're working hard. They have their own families to provide for, and a lot of them are exceptionally knowledgeable. At the individual level, there's no, there's really good people out there. The problem is the structural one. That's the
Mm,
systemic one, in that individual agents and lenders, they're working inside a system that they didn't design, they didn't build.
mm,
The incentive structure that they work within is one that incentivizes, you get paid when there's a closing. You
right,
know, for the
right.
lender, when you sell, when a lender's product is money, they're selling you a loan. They get paid when that loan closes. An
Yep.
agent gets two cracks at the apple. They get paid when you buy, or they get paid when you sell. What they don't get paid for is guidance,
Mm,
truly. And they don't get paid if an agent spends 15 hours with you and ultimately concludes this is a really bad time for you to buy.
yep.
An agent doesn't make a dime.
Right.
And that makes it really hard for an agent. And again, we're not demonizing them. I actually have a lot of compassion and
Yeah.
empathy there, because I've been there. By the way, I used to be an agent, so I've been on that side of it.
Right.
That person doesn't make money giving you guidance to tell you slow down, maybe do it tomorrow.
Yep.
And that's a structural problem. It's been that way for a very long time, and so that's why we exist. We exist to, as you said, I love that phrase, decouple guidance from the transaction.
Yep.
You can buy a $10 million house after using our platform. We don't make a
Right.
penny. You can sell one. We don't make a penny. You can do nothing. We don't make a penny, and that's by design.
Yeah.
Because people deserve guidance is in their best interest.
Well, and I mean, I think, consumers really find value in having, in home buying, a neutral place to think before the transaction machine just starts, automatically moving. And that objectivity is not anti-agent. I actually say it's pro-trust, right?
Yes, that's completely right. And there's a social cost that consumers currently pay today to get information. And what I mean by that is, whether you're a renter a buyer, a homeowner, a seller, and you're thinking about something in the real estate space, the social cost that you pay is the minute you reach out to an agent or a lender, you might get some information back. But
Mm,
now that agent or that lender, again, because of how they're, incentivized, not because they're, bad folk,
yep.
you're now on their radar. Now you're on a drip campaign or a text thread or an email or a, phone call. Hey, Johnny, let's just following up on our conversation.
Yep.
And that's a cost that this person might not want to pay. So, your comment about neutrality and having this safe space where, yeah, you can have someone get the expertise that a lender might give you or an agent might give you or even your accountant might give you. You can have that all in one space without being on anybody's radar. So you can just digest this information, process this information, ruminate on it in your own time. That's what we're trying to create with Aligre, giving people the knowledge that they need and the time they need to digest it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's great, because if the advice, I think it only really works when it benefits the advisor, or rather, if the advice only works when it benefits the advisor, it's not guidance; it's just sales in a cardigan, right? And you told me something that honestly lit me up. Aligre should not have to exist, right? And that's actually a justice thread. Consumers should already be getting objective guidance, and the fact that it feels like a new category is the indictment here. What absolutely pisses you off about the current system?
That what you just said, and it's we exist and we do what we do. We've built this platform because the current industry isn't doing what they said. If the real estate industry and the incentive structure was structured differently, actually align the advisor's expertise with the consumer's best interest, such that an advisor could say, you know what, you should not do that right now. It is a terrible
Yep.
time for you to sell. If the industry had incentivized their agents or their lenders to have an honest conversation like that, then we wouldn't have to exist. But they didn't. And
Mm,
that's where we see a wrong that we have to right, because again, this isn't that you know you bought a bad watermelon at the store, or
yep.
the the minivan that you got only has 6 seats and you needed 8. Oops, okay, you can live with that,
Yep.
maybe. This decision has such far-reaching, implications to your family, to your financials, that when I realize structurally there's a challenge here, I'm like, gosh, if there's something you're going to dedicate your life to,
Yep.
it's this.
Right.
And we all, whether we realize it or not to get philosophical with you, Adam, but we all decide what to do with our life. And you can work at a job, you can make a bunch of money. There's no shame in that. But for me, I said, you know what? There's something I'm gonna spend the rest of my life doing, is gonna be trying to fix it. We're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love also, in this world, that sometimes the most disruptive idea doesn't need to be that flashy, right? It's simply thinking about and giving people what they should have had in the first place. And I do want to talk about your founder choice, because it's not abstract for you. I'll mention again, you sold your house to start a company, and that's not
Yeah.
one of the million LinkedIn hustle quotes out there. That's true real risk. Um, what do you have to believe about the problem and about yourself to keep going when you're living on savings and building something the market just might not fully understand quite yet?
Yeah. I think that it's a conviction that this problem is worthy of being solved and it needs to be solved.
Mm,
This is it's this problem is so prevalent, not just here in the United States, but also globally. The,
yep.
the question of where should I lay my head at night is a global one. It's a human one. And it's one that's existed from, people living in caves and our ancestors doing that. And it will exist, for all time. when it struck me how many people were being impacted by this, that until someone fixed it, millions more would be. That's the moment that I knew, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we can't have people making decisions that could or could not be good, and they barely afforded the thing, and, and it has no bear the people that guided them make out the same either way. And it
Right.
just was something that I just decided, you know what, again, this is what it is. I want to commit my life to.
Yeah.
And I guess the second piece of it is that it's something that I know we can fix.
Yeah.
If you had an individual or you have a company that actually, like you said, didn't put their hand into that commission pot, if you actually had a company that said, you know what, we're going to focus on everything but the transaction,
Right.
that opens up a lot of options. If you're
Right.
beholden to that, if you're beholden to the transaction, yeah, there's only so many things you can do. But if you actually say, you know what, we're going to make it money a different way. So the transaction, cool, do it, don't do it, makes no difference. It only gives us so many options. And then the third last thing I'll say here is we're at a time in history where technology can allow us to do what I envision, can be the future of real estate, which is objective guidance. And
Yep.
all of the information is out there. We're just putting it all into one place.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of got a
It
little bit of
does.
a little winding path there, but yeah.
No, but it gets into this idea that, that obviously conviction isn't saying I believe in this when the deck just looks good. The conviction you followed here is what's left when the deck is actually gone or the power runs out and the sacrifice is real. So,
The power has run out, so
yeah. Well, the
never
other
kept going.
piece the other piece of it, Nico, is of course that trust doesn't scale because you automate more, right? And that trust really scales when the system here keeps proving it's aligned with the person who's using it. But based on our conversation, I want to talk about maybe one move listeners can run this week, and I want to call it the incentive audit. And I think it can be used for real estate, it can be used for leadership, business decisions, hiring, financial advice, anywhere someone is guiding you. And it's just four simple questions. The first is who benefits if I say yes. The second is who benefits if I say no. The third is what advice would this person give me if they made the same amount either way? And then the fourth is where do I need objective guidance before I need execution? And I think that last one is the unlock we covered today. Sometimes you don't need someone to help you move faster. You need someone to help you decide whether moving is even the right move. Nico, what might you add to that list of questions, though?
Yeah, no, that's terrific. Gosh, you really nailed it. I think there's a thing called so we've all heard of a moratorium. I believe, and I might butcher this, but I've heard of a concept called a pretorium, which is effectively what it looks like if you make the wrong decision, and asking yourself, if I make this decision and it was the wrong one, what does my life look like? And I survive making the wrong decision. And that's not to be a fear mongering whatever. It's just really asking yourself, the worst case scenario, can you survive it? Because sometimes in real estate specifically, you'll have guidance. For example, rates are high. A lot of times the guidance
Yep.
is, oh, buy now and just refinance later.
Yep.
Okay, what if the market changes and you can't refinance? What if you're on an adjustable rate mortgage and it goes up and you lose? Maybe you lose a job, maybe you don't. But point is
Yep.
that can you actually survive if whatever hopeful narrative you were sold or told
Yep.
doesn't come to pass?
Right.
That's the question I'd ask. Is,
Yeah.
is what does the worst case scenario look like, and can you survive?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is all where, that trust gets cleaner when those incentives actually become more visible, right? So, but Nico, you know how we end every episode, after all of this, whether it's real estate, objective guidance, conflicts of interest, selling your own house to build Aligre, and maybe that myth that expertise automatically equals objectivity, is anything real?
Is anything real? That question is that is the big one, and I will say yes, it is. I think it's all real, and it's just that sometimes we don't like it, and when we don't like it, I think it's our responsibility to go fix it.
I love that actually. That's a great way to bring it. And I think what feels real to me is that alignment, right? It's not the marketing version, it's the actual version when the guidance, incentives, and customers' best interests finally point in the same direction. People feel that, and that's what's real. But Nico, where can folks find you, Aligre, and learn more about the work that you're building here?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. So on our social, just any platform, just look for Aligre Social. That's Instagram, YouTube, X. I'm Nico Lang. I'm on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with anyone there. And then the website, of course, is aligre.com, and we are launching soon. So join the wait list, and we're really excited to help as many people as we can.
Awesome. And we'll, of course, have that linked in the show notes below here for our listeners to check out. But, for the listeners here, I would say stop assuming expertise equals objectivity. Before you make any major decision, ask from that list, who benefits from your yes, who benefits from your no, and where you might need clean guidance before execution. And if this hit, send it to someone who's in the middle of trying to make a major life decision inside a system where everyone seems to have a hand near the cash register. And of course, if you're navigating a leadership transition, there's a 20-minute foundational call with me linked in the show notes below as well. No pitch, just clarity on your next right move. But Nico, thank you for bringing the receipts. No pun intended there, of course, with home buying, but that conviction and the consumer first fire. I'm excited to see how this scales up and drives greater justice and equity in the world as well.
Well, Adam, we appreciate it. It's always fun chatting with you, and we love your mission as well. So thank you again for the opportunity to be on the show.
You got it. And until next time, stay grounded, stay human, and keep questioning the noise. If this episode of Is Anything Real resonated, you're probably at a moment where the old playbook isn't holding anymore. I work with transitioning founders and executives to install operating rhythms that hold under pressure. Not motivation, not hype. I've spent over 20 years inside high-pressure environments and worked with over 300 leaders through moments where clarity mattered more than speed. If you want clarity you can actually rely on, book a foundation call at adamwbarney.com. Clarity over chaos, always.